All right, today we're going to start talking about stories. So let me start off by asking a question. Why do we tell stories? What is the root cause for telling stories? Usually telling stories is a means of spreading wisdom, right? Stories can be really effective teaching tools. I don't know how many folks here were in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts along the way, but we told a lot of stories, right? They can talk about how one wrong turn or a lack of understanding can lead someone to make a bad decision. And sometimes stories don't matter to professions, right? I talk a lot about professional sort of topics. For instance, my path and career in cybersecurity might not apply to someone trying to break into trucking, for instance, right? Stories can give us knowledge about how we are supposed to act or not act, and they can give us inspiration to act. If we're credible in our storytelling and we can connect emotionally, we can encourage people to act maybe in the right way. A little bit of building drama also never hurts as long as we're, still being truthful and credible. So I was having a bit of back and forth story time now with a prior student today on LinkedIn about a problem in their lives. And I'm not going to mention the person's name, but it's a story I constantly run into. It's something that I hear repeatedly. They're stressed out in their job search. They thought this was going to be easy. University said there's all these cybersecurity jobs out there. And, it's a story I hear time and time again, and I can relate to it. So I figured I'm going to tell a story. I was trying to break into IT back in 2004, which now I'm dating myself, I guess, 21 years ago or what have you. And I thought maybe I could share some things here from my story that would reduce other people's stress, maybe help them break into the field, help them grow a little bit, with what the market is doing right now, and some of the things that are going on in terms of cybersecurity career availability. So let me start by saying that a positive mental attitude isn't going to get you into the field right now, at least in my opinion. Is it a component of getting into the field? Absolutely. I think we need to invoke a little self-creative storytelling and start to imagine other ways to break into the field. I think we can certainly visualize different paths to ultimately end up with a career in cybersecurity rather than waiting for that sort of unicorn of an entry-level position with 1,000 other applicants to just simply fall into our laps. We need to take a leap from the self-storytelling, visualization into actual acting. So let's talk about my story, and hopefully I can hook you up with 2 or 3 important lessons along the way. I'm going to try to keep my storytelling a bit simple, maybe unexpected, concrete, incredible, and maybe include a little touch of emotion here. So I want to start way back in the 90s, which is back there for me, when I was a teenager running wild on the streets of Dallastown, PA. It was a little different than being a teenager today. We were riding our bikes. We were kind of freewheeling after school was done for the day. In the summer times, we were playing, just different from the current environment out there. I was not a great teenager. Let's get that straight. I don't think a lot of people know that about me. I got into some things that resulted in my grades dropping. I was almost held back several times in middle school and high school, and I did some really stupid teenage things that I wasn't proud of along the way. At that time, I had a number of great influences too. I had an uncle. His name was Uncle Rich. So Rich and Uncle Rich. He harnessed my passion for computers. He even let me play with his computer, and I unfortunately broke one of his first computers. From there, I had another sort of mentor that my mom introduced me to in high school, and I apologize, I cannot remember the gentleman's name, which is terrible. But he worked for a company called Modern Woman, and he handled all of their IT systems, and I got to spend some time with him, and he helped me to build a computer from scratch when I was still in high school in the 90s. Needless to say, with those 2 folks and some teachers at Dallastown Area School District, I knew what I was going to spend my career doing, even if I didn't have a passion for the things that were going on in high school. I took those poor grades from high school, went to an open admission college at Pennsylvania College of Technology, and turned that passion into a high 3 GPA that didn't reflect the person that I was in high school, right? I took the time to go to tutoring when I had trouble. I did the things I needed to do to succeed. Then came the truly hard part, right? Exiting, I had several degrees in computer networking, data communications, technical support, and I didn't have a job. I did, however, have a leg up from career services at the college that helped me along the way. I learned that if I went out there and took internships, I could qualify for educational grants. So that was kind of time is money for me. The grant program was called SciTech, if my memory is right. At the time, I don't know if it's still around. Doesn't matter. So I started taking up various internships. I took an internship for 2 summers at Dallastown Area School District. I took a job at a wealthy kids summer camp called Iroquois Springs in New York. I took minimum wage jobs in the summertime to learn my craft. I also took a job working service desk at Pennsylvania College of Technology. So I would go to work from 8 to 5 in the summers. I would learn my craft, and then I'd go at nighttime and work in loss prevention, chasing down shoplifters at Sears and Value City to sort of supplement my income. So my first piece of advice is if you can find an internship during school in your field, take it. Forget about taking that summer off and laying in front of the TV if you want to get your first leg up. I had to move away from home when I worked in New York to do so, and it was worth every second of my resume. So the next part of my journey is about finding my first real professional full-time job. I didn't find it right away. I graduated in May 2004, and it took about a month and a half to find my first role, which is probably short by today's standards. But what did I do while I was hunting for a job? Well, in the months prior to graduation and after graduation, I took on consulting roles for small businesses. I did quite a bit of work for a small construction company called KNZ Construction, and I think you would be absolutely shocked if you're in the IT field if you contact small business owners and find out what they're paying per hour for local IT consulting. It's absolutely ridiculous in some cases, and I'm not trying to bash those consulting firms. They're absolutely necessary, but it's amazing how open they are to paying a lower rate per hour for IT services and how great that looks in your resume. Could I have turned that into a full-time role, just doing consulting and getting out there and going, knocking door to door? Maybe. I wasn't quite the social butterfly that I am now, and I'm not sure if I would have even at that point in my life gone door to door to advertise my IT services. I think today I certainly could. So the second piece of advice, don't be afraid to network with owners of small businesses that might be paying exorbitantly high prices for IT services. Get out there. Even if you're not comfortable going door to door, send some emails. I was impatient. I wanted instant gratification in the job world, and I wasn't finding that network engineer role that I dreamed about. Everyone was going into networking. Cisco and Juniper were hot. Everyone was coming out of school with networking degrees. So what did I do? I started applying to service desk roles. Network engineering of the early 2000s was what cybersecurity is today. There were a ton of people coming out of schools available to go into that field. It was the hot thing. But I kept hearing from people, taking a service desk job's beneath you, you can do so much more, so forth and so on. I don't think people realize the value that we place on service desk professionals. And to be frank, it was the best decision I probably made along my professional journey. Why do you ask? What got me in the door at a company where I could grow my career. I took a job at Susquehanna Bank Shares, and I worked with so many people that I'm still connected to today. I had really amazing mentors, from Brian Koenig, a service desk supervisor, Bill Morrell as a network engineering manager, a server manager, and Rod Lefevre, who was my CIO. And I moved really rapidly in the time that I was there, from service desk to PC repair to network engineering to doing firewall work in cybersecurity. I learned about things like ITIL and IT service management concepts and change management and configuration management and risk and all the foundational things that it takes to build a career in cybersecurity that aren't just necessarily bookwork. It was seeing it in the real world. So my third piece of advice is don't be afraid to take a job on a service desk. I've even seen many lifelong careers built in the service desk, and I've seen people climb the ladder also in corporate America by starting off with something that other people may have told them was beneath them. So get past that thought. Maybe another day I'll go into the history of my academic background and why I did many of the things there. It really has to do with some amazing mentors. Today I can still sort of visualize a degree hanging on a wall from Dartmouth that Rod Lefevre, our CTO at the bank, had hanging on the wall. I wanted that piece of paper really, really bad, but another thought for another day. So how about some other thoughts if you don't want to start at the bottom? You're not getting anywhere right away. You're not getting an interview. You're not willing to go door to door and look for work. Well, the first is something I consider along the way, which is public service. I joined an interview process with the DEA in Pittsburgh in my senior year of college. I think the prospect of potentially being shot and killed in the line of duty was a little bit too much for me. But there are plenty of opportunities, as my friend Drew Brown pointed out a few weeks ago, in public service. There's a great job board out there called governmentjobs.com. I know there's layoffs and things right now, but you can still go out there and find careers in public service. Do they pay as much? Not necessarily. Are they rewarding careers with oftentimes really amazing benefits? Absolutely. And I'm sure my friends here can chime in with some other websites. So if you don't want to go into public service, there's always consulting and contract work. I have a number of folks here that I would consider personal friends. They work at places like Susan Graham, Robert Half, Tech Systems, JFC Global, and they can help try to place great candidates in fantastic jobs, many times with benefits. And I can hear people in the background now going, I don't want to work on a short-term contract position. That's not stability. Many times these contracts turn into contract to hire, or they result in long-term positions with an organization. Over my career, I've hired a number of employees on a contract to hire basis. It's a great way to get in the door, a great way to make money and pay those bills, and a great way to make a first impression. And I see tons of folks out there discounting those opportunities. Don't be afraid of them. Worst case, it's a 6-month job with a steady paycheck and amazing reference to put on your resume and differentiate yourself from someone else. So I think that's enough for the storytelling today. This is a really long one. I hope this helps someone out there on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever I'm posting this video that's struggling to find steady work as a recent grad. So have a fantastic week.